Today we are going to start with the discretization methods. So this is one of the most important topics in computational fluid dynamics. So till now we have been dealing with methods that were applicable to the entire domain. Now we will be slowly progressing towards the objective of discretization of that domain, and eventually we will lead ourselves to the well-known finite difference methods, finite element method, and finite volume methods. So to understand this in a greater detail and get the big picture, we will start with a physical problem. Say we have something like this. So this is a kind of circuit board which has a number of microprocessors, and also there are kind of heat sinks here, and all of them are mounted on a copper plate. So this is typically what happens in all the electronic gadgets like laptops and all those gadgets working on similar principles. That is, the microprocessor during its operation generates heat, and that heat is transferred to the sink through this heat spreader material, that is copper, because of its high thermal conductivity. So for instance, we are given this kind of situation and we want to analyze this system to and we are asked to find out whether these heat sinks would be sufficient for proper operation of these microprocessors, because if these microprocessors are not able to dissipate heat finally to the heat sink, the performance of these microprocessors will be hampered. So the first step is we model the domain itself. That is, we are able to find out that this inherently contains a kind of symmetry. So instead of studying the entire full circuit board, what we can do is we can actually take a small chunk of this circuit board and treat that as the unit cell and see whether this unit cell repeats periodically in certain directions. So we are able to identify that this entire circuit board is essentially containing this kind of unit cell, that is a heat sink, a microprocessor, and now this is actually repeated in ordered fashion. So instead of studying this entire circuit board, we will confine our analysis or observation to this small system. So this is called domain modeling. So this is called your geometric or domain modeling. Now, once we have done the simplification, the next step is do towards the analysis, and that is called your physical phenomena modeling. That is, this is description of some kind of physical phenomena going on a certain domain. Through geometric modeling, we have simplified the domain to which we have simplified the domain in which we need to understand the physics. Now, to simplify the physics itself, what we can say is, because this is a copper plate and the thickness of this copper plate is small as compared to the entire dimension of the circuit board, so we can actually understand this periodic structure as two-dimensional, because we know that if this thickness is very less, then there will be negligible temperature gradients in this direction. So we did not analyze this system in this vertical direction. We only need to analyze the system in this plane. So this kind of simplification is done through physical modeling or mathematical description of the physical phenomena. So we see here that we have, this represents the simplified geometric domain, and this represents that instead of heat sink that was related to something geometric domain, now to model this mathematically we need to assign a temperature to this sink to this microprocessor. Although the temperature across this heat sink will not be a constant temperature. But now here comes the skill of an engineer or an analyst, that you cleverly assign a temperature to the system. You can assign a single temperature if there is not a very pronounced spatial temperature distribution. If there is some pronounced spatial temperature distribution, then you cannot assign a single temperature to this heat sink. Likewise, you can do the similar kind of thing for this microprocessor. And one thing more, because we have actually taken the benefit of symmetry here, and so to simplify the model, what we have assumed is that this unit cell, because it repeats in this direction, so there is kind of symmetry here. So this boundary, as we know from our heat transfer concepts, that any kind of symmetry means adiabatic boundary conditions. So we have actually made this boundary as adiabatic. So starting from this complicated circuit board, with the help of geometric or domain modeling, we narrow down to a 2D unit cell, and applying the concept of physical modeling, we further simplified it, assuming that sink temperature is fixed, microprocessor temperature is fixed, and this boundary is insulated. So please remember, while doing this process, we have done away with the details that are neither relevant nor of interest, only to simplify the analysis of this system. Now, once we have assigned the temperatures, the next step is we need to understand that as there is no fluid going on here, so the heat dissipation will be primarily occurring through conduction. So this is the generic equation, the conservation equation. So this is the unsteady term, this is the advection term, this is the diffusion term, and this is the source term. So what we are able to see is, here we are assuming that this is steady state analysis. There are no advection fluxes, that it means there is no kind of fluid flowing here. Had there been a kind of heat pipe and we were to analyze the heat pipe, then we would have taken this into consideration. Or for instance, there was, say, a fan blowing over this microprocessor, then this advective term, advection flux, needs to be taken into account. But in this model, it will be only appropriate to take the diffusion flux, that is conduction, and the source. So please remember, depending on the physical situation actually at hand, you will simplify this generalized conservation equation. So this setting up of governing differential equation now forms the third step, in which we have actually defined the physics using some kind of mathematics. So now we have already traversed through three steps. One is, we have seen the physical situation, and then we have done some kind of physical modeling, and physical modeling as well as geometric modeling, so they go hand in hand. So you don't independently do geometric and physical modeling. So they are actually interdependent. And the third step is defining the governing differential equation, or you can also define a governing integral equation depending on what kind of model you have chosen. Now, after defining some governing equation to the entire physics, we could actually find the solution of the governing differential equation or equivalent integral equation. But unfortunately, we don't have solutions to most of these governing equations, and that too if they are applied to some kind of complex physical domain. So now there are two things. This equation does not have solution as such. That is, you will have to resort to some kind of numerical methods that we have already studied. Now, and also the domain on which this equation needs to be applied is somewhat complicated. So to address these two issues, we go for domain discretization and equation discretization. So first, domain discretization. Now this was our domain. So we have discretized domain into a kind of grid in which we have essentially three kinds of boundaries. This was, if you remember, this was your insulated boundary. This represents the heat sink. This represents the microprocessor. So we have already simplified that this heat sink is at a constant temperature and this microprocessor is also at a constant temperature. You could also divide this domain, instead of these square kind of elements, you could divide in some other kind of geometrical elements, for instance triangle. So it is up to you, depending on how the geometry looks, we will figure out which is the most optimal geometric element. And please remember, these subdomains or elements, whatever you call, they should be non-overlapping. So that is the condition for this kind of domain discretization. Although nowadays you have the concept of overlapping cells also, but we will not go into detail of those. So we will restrict to the case in which the cells are not overlapping. Now we have discretized the domain. This domain discretization can be thought of from three different perspectives. That is, either you discretize the domain and you say that you want to find out the variable value which you intend to find. For instance, in this differential equation, phi happens to be temperature. So if you want to find out temperature across this system, then you could either find out temperatures at these grid points, or you could find out temperature at these interfaces, or you could assign a temperature to this entire element as such. Now to completely define the mesh, we need to define its constituent elements. These points are called vertices. So these are the vertices of the mesh. These are called the faces of the mesh, and these form the interface through which each of these boxes interact with each other, and these boxes themselves are called elements. And this is essentially required to understand the three basic discretization methods, namely finite difference method, finite volume method, and finite element method. Now we'll move to discretization of equations, with which you are a little bit more conversant with. So we have been dealing with numerical solution of a differential equation. So numerical solution of differential equation actually means that we are interested in set of numbers from which the distribution of the dependent variable can be constructed. Now, if we had exact solution for the differential equation, then there was no requirement to find a numerical solution. So that is the first thing. These are only to be used when we don't have exact solution for the differential equation. So this numerical solution of differential equation fetches us the value of the variable which we intend to find at only discrete points. Now, to better understand this concept, let's appreciate that this entire activity of numerical solution of differential equation, which gives us essentially numerical values, only distinct numerical values, not continuous value of the function at every x, but rather discrete values of the variable which we need to intend to find out. So it is analogous to what you do in your experiment. For instance, say I want to find out the thermal conductivity as a function of temperature. So I cannot actually factually find out conductivity at each and every temperature. So being an experimentalist, I will have to choose depending on my interest, which will again depend on what kind of analysis I want to do after doing this experiment, that at what temperature should I measure the thermal conductivity. So instead of going for the entire temperature range, say for instance I want to understand the thermal conductivity behavior between 0 to 300 degrees Celsius. So it is not that I will carry out experiment at each and every temperature within this temperature range. But alternatively, what I will do is I will find out conductivity at discrete values of temperatures. So being a numerical analyst or an experimentalist, I will have to convince me that I will be only getting the result at discrete values of the independent variable. So we have understood that numerical solution does not mean that our objective is to find out the solution in the entire domain, but alternatively we intend to find out solution only at certain values of the independent variable. Now let's look at some of the methods which we have already discussed. This will help us to appreciate what we will be doing next. So let's first revisit what we have done till now relevant to numerical solution of differential equations. So in our earlier discussions, we saw that if say this was the differential equation, so this is a simple second order differential equation, and this represents a kind of one-dimensional heat transfer with uniform heat generation, and these are the two boundary conditions. So temperature is specified at the two boundaries. So in order to find out approximate solution, we discussed that we need to fit a polynomial. In particular, we need to fit a polynomial or some other function as the approximating function. So we generally use polynomial functions because these are in all or more friendly because they are easy to differentiate, they are easy to integrate, and also they are continuous. So they don't have any kind of discontinuities. So our first choice happened to be a polynomial function. So we designed something like this, that this T approximate looks somewhat like this, with C0, C1, C2 as independent constants. So this approximating function was used to find out numerical solution to this given differential equation through three routes. If you remember, first one was direct implementation through D form, that is the differential form. In that case, we simply put the value of T approximate in this differential equation, and if this is indeed to be equal to 0, that is the case when T approximate is essentially equal to T true, then this will be essentially put equal to 0. Otherwise, this will not be equal to put 0, and it will result in some kind of residue. So D form of the solution will fetch you answers only if the approximating function happens to be the true function itself. So now second route is through V form. As we have noted that if this is in the D form, if the approximating function is not equal to the true function, then we don't have any kind of solution, approximate solution to this differential equation. Then what we do is we convert this D form into a form called V form, and V form actually decreases the quantity requirement for this dependent variable T. As you can see, in D form, the temperature needs to be differentiably up till second order. But in this case, you only require it to differentiate once. And moreover, even if you don't have the approximating function as equal to true function, then also you can get solution through this form of the solution, that is V form. And likewise, we have studied M form, which was just a variant of V form itself, or they are interchangeable in under circumstances. So M form was essentially based on the minimization principle. That is, we have studied the principle of least action, that is something is minimized, and that was called as the Lagrangian. So in both in V form and M form, these are put to use when D form fails. And when D form fails, we get approximate solution through V form route and M form route. And essentially, we get this kind of brown curve as the approximating function, and this blue curve represents the true function. But here we are getting a solution that is over the entire domain. Now this could work well if the actual curve was a smooth one. That is, you don't have large number of valleys and mountains. But if you have a kind of curve which cannot be approximated with some simple functions like polynomial, for instance, you want to say approximate a phenomena in which the governing equation solution is in the form of Bessel functions. So Bessel functions cannot be very well approximated using polynomial functions. Then you cannot have this approximating function matching this entire curve. Now, although this entire procedure seems to be okay, but this procedure is somewhat inconvenient, because if your ultimate interest is to obtain the values of, say, temperature at various locations, then why do you intend to find out the entire curve? Because, for instance, you want to find out temperature at say some x here, say at this x. at this x. So you are only interested to find out the temperature values at discrete values of x. So, so as the ultimate aim is to find out temperatures at discrete locations. So why not construct a method that employs values of temperature at a number of given points as a primary unknowns? For instance, in the previous case, the unknowns were these constants. But instead of these constants, if we alternatively reformulate T approximate as A1, T1, A2, T2, that is, the unknowns now are these temperature themselves. So we are not indirectly but directly finding out the temperature values. But now doing this kind of stuff, essentially what we have done is, in focusing attention on the values at the finite number of locations, we have actually replaced the continuous information contained in the exact solution of differential equation with discrete values. Now, to better understand this, say for instance in this case, this approximating function gave us the solution in the entire domain. So that is a different thing. That is a different matter whether we got how close was the approximating solution with respect to the true solution. But essentially we got the solution for the entire domain. But if we go by this kind of structure, we are essentially finding out finally temperatures at only discrete points, because eventually when we solve this, we are solving for T1, T2. So eventually we will get values of these temperatures at these discrete points. We will not get temperatures in between, because our primary unknowns are now temperatures instead of the x-axis. So what we are achieving here is, so we have actually devised a numerical method that treats as its basic unknowns the values of the dependent variable at a finite number of locations in the computational domain. So for instance, this was the computational domain, that is, say this is a bar and these are the two boundaries, and you intend to find out temperatures at these locations. So when you approximate the function using this formulation, this will essentially, after solution, give you values of temperature at exactly these locations. Although this curve would look somewhat like this. For instance, you have, say, this light blue color represent the true solution. Now this brown curve represents this particular equation, that is T approximate is equal to A1 T1 plus A2 T2 A3 T3 and so on. So now please try to see the difference between the two. Here in the first case, when we were using approximating function, that was, say, T approximate is equal to C0 plus C1x plus C2 x square and so on, we got as solution, we got this brown curve as the solution. So this brown curve could actually give us values of temperature at all values of x in the entire domain. But now, after the alteration, that is, we have replaced the variables C0, C1, C2, C3 with the temperature or the prime dependent variable themselves, that is T1, T2, T3. So now if we have approximating function in terms of these primary dependent variables, that is T1, T2, T3, we get a curve somewhat like this. So essentially we have now essentially we have fitted a single approximating curve to the entire domain. But the difference is now the solution to this approximation or this approximate solution will fetch us values only at discrete values of x. Whereas in the earlier case, we got solution for each and every value of x. Now in this case, although we are getting discrete values of temperatures in the domain, but we can see is but we can see that if we approximate using a single polynomial curve, although now it is a function of dependent variables, that is temperature themselves, it could be better if we could actually subdivide the computational domain such that a separate profile assumption can be associated with each subdomain. Now for instance, say this is the two solution, this curve in sky blue or light blue. Now instead of going for the curve that was true for the entire domain, now I have divided the entire domain into subdomains, and each subdomain is now approximated using approximating functions. Now instead of the solution fetching me the values of t1, t2, t3 and up till t6, because I have divided the entire computational domain into small subdomains and each subdomain is individually approximated using some approximating functions. So now these approximating functions themselves will be written down only in terms of neighboring nodes. For instance, say I take the example of T3. Now T3 will be impacted only by T2 and T4 and not by T1 and T5 directly. So when I approximate a function in this small subdomain, I will only take care about its neighboring temperatures. So the solution will not contain all temperatures in the entire domain, but it will contain temperatures as the unknown dependent variables. Only those are neighboring that particular node. Now to better understand this concept, let's look at an example. So this represents a mesh in which we have defined different kind of its constituents. These boxes are essentially called elements, and these have been represented using these numbers enclosed in circles. These are the faces, and faces have been represented by these brown triangles. And you might be also seeing certain kind of vertices. So these are the intersection point of grid lines, and these are called vertices. So as we mentioned earlier that when we have divided the entire domain into number of subdomains and we have approximated a polynomial function or some other function in each subdomain, then that polynomial function is actually interpolation function is the interpolation function that is true in that subdomain only, because it is written down in terms of the temperatures bounding that node. So it will only contain those temperatures only. So to understand this, say 5 is the element which we are analyzing. So 5 is actually influenced by, or it will influence both ways, the element 6, 2, 4 and 8. Likewise, it will influence or get influenced by these nodes 6, 7, 11, 10. And also it will get influenced by faces 9, 12, 16 and 13. So this kind of connectivity is called element connectivity. That is, we are interested to find out how a particular element is connected to other constituents of the mesh. Likewise, we can have phase connectivity. For instance, we direct our attention to this phase. So this phase is actually connecting these two vertices 7 and 12. So this phase is also an interface between these two elements, that is 5 and 6. So it is connecting these two elements and these two vertices. So these are the neighbors of this phase. Likewise, in case of vertex connectivity, we have, say, this vertex. So this vertex will be affected, or it will affect the element 6, 5, 8, 9. Likewise, it can impact or get influence from its neighboring vertices 10, 7, 12, 15. Likewise, for the faces, that is 16, 17, this face and this face. So on the whole, we have systematically discretized the space and the dependent variables. So this makes it possible that the governing differential equation now gets converted to set of algebraic equations. Now these algebraic equations will be somewhat written in the form of a matrix. So this will involve the coefficients, this will involve the unknown temperatures, and this will involve some kind of constants. So they will be essentially mapping of local elements. Now we know that for each element or for each entity, it is impacted by its neighbors. So when we solve for the approximating function in that subdomain, then the essential solution will be containing that particular, for instance, we are taking this element 5. So as a part of solution, we will only get an algebraic equation that contains T5, T2, T4, T8 and T6. So each subdomain like this will fetch you temperature dependence of itself with its neighboring elements. So you will get 9 algebraic equations, and then these algebraic equations, we know that they are actually equations for each element, a kind of local affair. That is, 5 is written down in terms of 2, 4, 8, 6. Likewise, 8 is written down in terms of 7, 9, 5. So all the temperatures do not appear in a single equation. We have 9 such equations. Now, these 9 equations will somewhat form this kind of a system. That is, you will have 1 to 9 temperatures here, and some constants here, and some coefficients here. So although the equation for each subdomain does not involve all temperatures, that is 1 to 9. So you will have to devise some method which maps local affair to the global affair, and that we will touch upon in a further discussion in the next lecture.